Now, the reason I would love to be in nature is because that is what we are all about. We are elements of nature. And it was some 15 years ago that I started understanding how deeply ingrained our oneness with nature is for our well-being and happiness. So if you just start with this, you might think that, hey, this is the first thing I'm learning, this connection with being a pipe between the heaven and the earth. But this is probably enough for the last thing that you need to know. My name is Sandeep Nath, and I am from India.
So you have been practicing Zhineng Qigong or Qigong for 15 years?
Yes, that's right. And I have, in fact, integrated some of the practices which come from different schools of Qigong. I've had the good fortune of also learning from Dr. Yang Jwing-Ming, who's in fact written the foreword for my book, Renewal, which is about the renewal of human consciousness. And I advocate Qigong as a very important practice for establishing this oneness with nature and for establishing the oneness with community. You see, our relationships suffer so much because we are at different energetic levels. We vibe differently. And if only we could vibe right, for which Qigong and Zhineng Qigong in particular is instrumental,
Yes.
we would create a much better society, right?
Absolutely. What inspired you? Because I see that you actually got your business qualification, you did the whole thing, you went to climb the corporate ladder, and then what happened? What inspired you to make this change?
Wow, that's a very perceptive question. Thank you so much for asking, because maybe this would be inspirational for people who are in the corporate world and are at the kind of crossroads where I was. I was about 15 years ago, as I said, feeling a lack of purpose, a sense of hollowness about what I was doing. And not only what I was doing, I was running a consulting company where we were consulting to clients on marketing communications and culture building. But I was disturbed by what my clients were doing. You know, we were not necessarily doing things that were in the interest of the next generation of good health. And some of this stuff is commonsensical, like Coca-Cola went reversed their stand on the health impact of Coke publicly about 10 years ago. And 15 years ago, I was helping Pepsi market and organize events for them and stuff like that. I was working with companies like Genpact, which are business process outsourcing companies, where these hundreds of thousands of kids who are working against the biorhythm and solving problems for people in the US, sitting in India, but problems that I thought ought not to have existed in the first place, somebody's credit cards and this and that. So I said, there's something wrong in this equation. The next generation cannot be working at such a low consciousness level. And so what is high consciousness? What is human consciousness about? What is purpose? What's my purpose? And that's what drove me towards answers from people who understand how energy flows. And now what I have amalgamated is something which I call business Qigong. So business Qigong is something which I can take to the corporate world where I come from, where I empathize with their problems. But while I got away from the disturbing corporate world and went to villages, now I want to go back to the corporates and institute programs where we have these circles of community which can practice together, and we can guide them, and more so online, because they just vibe much better with each other, and they stop operating in those independent silos of Zoom boxes and instead start intermingling energy. You can feel it in the very first session, and they therefore work on better health, happiness, and harmony, which results in productivity, which results in customer delight, which results in more revenues for companies, of course. But those are happy fallouts of happy people.
For someone who hasn't heard of Qigong or Zhineng Qigong, or has no idea about the healing powers and their capabilities, perhaps specifically someone who is like in a business environment, what advice would you have for them? Where would you advise they start? What inspired you? Where did you start?
Great question. Great question. Where would anybody start? Now, let's start with fundamentals. And if you're working in corporate space and wondering whether there's anything better that you can do for yourself and your family, understand this. We are all composed of a body, mind, and spirit trinity, right? Now, we are very obsessed with our body because it's very visual. And, we often go to the gym and we take walks. We think exercises are going to do us good and stuff like that. That's where a lot of us start. But we're also aware of the mind, where, the mental energies is what we use for logic, planning, strategy, things like that. And we understand that the mind has some control over the body. Like, for instance, when you think happy thoughts, then you feel better. Or when you get involved very deeply with something very purposeful, then you kind of forget that you had a toothache, or that your body is aching, or you woke up tired and things like that. So we do understand the body-mind connection with affirmations also, and psychotherapy. So there is something that can be done with the mind over the body, right? And many people start there. They start with meditative processes which induce calm and peace, or they go for mindfulness. Mindfulness is 2,500-year-old Buddhist practice, which has become fashionable now. Fortunately, I've got it from ancient Oriental wisdom, so to say, from source, and I can completely relate how people can use that to get this sort of body-mind alignment. But, and this is the big but, while you could start here, what you must understand is that Einstein had said something, and he had said that we can never solve any problem at the same level of thinking which created the problem. So if we've got a body problem, we can solve it from a mind level, as we just talked. But if we've got a mind and emotional problem, which is what's coming to the surface now, they've always been there, but thanks to COVID, 2020 has been the year of unmasking, because now we're having these mental health challenges out in the open, and we are willing to talk about them, and that's so good. What's not very good is that we don't understand what to do about them, because other than medication, we are not having much of a solution for mental and emotional challenges, because there isn't another level from where we can approach this. So the third level is spirit. And in common parlance, spirit is where you connect with divine energy, with the universal energy, which is like prayer, which people are aware of. Okay, so suddenly people rush to church or to temples or to mosques or wherever. And especially when science is given up, the doctors say now you can pray. So they get that connection with divine energy and something changes. But Qigong is connecting with energy. So a Qigong practitioner is actually operating at the level of integrating body, mind, and spirit. And if you want to start on that, you can start right there, because the practices are so simple. You are invoking energy. You just need to understand how to connect with that. And your site is the best place to start, I'd say, because it is designed for learners. It is designed with the best masters from across the world. And it's got books available, workbooks available, fundamentals so clearly laid out. So don't be worried about starting right there, because you don't have to start at the gym, you don't have to start at yoga, you don't have to start at meditation. You got to start straight up and take care of all three levels, and you can do it.
That's it. Don't be afraid to start. Just start somewhere. As human beings, it's in our nature to understand that connection between the spirit, mind, and the body. And it starts with practice. So if you fear it and you never take the first step, you're never going to see the progress. But just take a small step at a time. And then from there, you will open yourself up to a whole new life. I also want to appeal to people that are only starting, that are considering starting Zhineng Qigong. And they might pose the question to you, why should I start practicing Zhineng Qigong? What makes it unique for me to sustain and achieve these things in my life? To me, Zhineng Qigong is something that anyone can do because it's not physically demanding, no matter your age, no matter your illness, no matter your location. You're not dependent on any of those variables to be able to practice it.
So that's absolutely right what you said. In fact, I've had students who've been 5 years old all the way to almost 80 years old. So yes, age is no bar, physical condition is no bar. You could be reasonably immobile or on a wheelchair or something like that and still work on Qigong practices. Zhineng specifically is a beautiful concept and practice developed as a combination of two parts of the word, wisdom and ability. Now, that's what connected with me the most, because once I started understanding the energy principles from Tibetan lamas, I understood Buddhism as well. And the basis of Mahayana Buddhist practice is that it's important to develop in two areas, which is called the two wings on which you fly. And the two wings are wisdom and compassion. Now, wisdom is something that you accumulate through meritorious actions and experience and the lineage and the gratitude of the masters and stuff, the gurus. Compassion is an ability. Compassion is something that you develop as a consequence of how you work with yourself and how you project energies outwards. And Zhineng stands at the point of developing that ability to be, in a sense, a better Buddhist or a better human being. Buddhism is not a religion. Buddhism is a way of life, is a way of consciousness. So Zhineng Qigong specifically aligns beautifully in developing that very fundamental aspect of human consciousness.